Debbie, it's nice to hear you sing. And I'm going to share with them what happened this morning. My wife had to work last night. She takes care of, now it's too loud, maybe, or feeding back. I don't know, but we'll get through it. Debbie does home health care. It's ringing and feeding back. I don't know if it's turned up too loud.
We'll do something.
We can't have that. This is already going to be uncomfortable enough. I want to make it. I'm not joking. It's not funny. The word the Lord's given me, I believe, to share this morning is not a comfortable thing to share. But nonetheless, it's a good thing to obey the Lord when He tells you to do something. I was awakened this morning at 5:26 by the sound of my wife, who was not in bed with me. She was gone doing home health care 45 minutes away, calling my name very loudly, "John!" So strongly that it woke me up from a deep dream that I was in, a very vivid dream, and I raised up in the bed and I almost said, "What?" out loud, but I got up thinking maybe she got off early and was at the locked door downstairs trying to get in. I got up and went downstairs to the door at 5:30 this morning, and she wasn't there. And this will remind you, Debbie, of what happened with Jeff Jansen, which I'm not going to get into that. But I've said so many times over the years that there's no one who reminds me of Jesus more than my wife. And Jesus spoke to me to wake me up this morning in the voice of one person on earth that is the most like Him to me. And I just want to publicly declare that and say that it has been 25 amazing years, and you've forgiven much and loved much. And you are Jesus to me, and the Lord woke me up with your voice this morning to speak to me. With that said, well, I will do one more funny thing before we get too serious. These are true bifocals. It's not funny. At least they're matching. Yesterday I was wearing her red glasses on top of these. Now, I'll explain quickly the reason for this. Nice bifocals, you can spend $70, $80, $100, $200, $300 for a nice set of bifocals. I also, like Chris, am bivocational and do construction work, and I'm dropping them, breaking them, sitting on them, leaving them, losing them. $1 at Dollar Tree. You're all in focus there. This is not. Now that's in focus. All right. My $2 bifocals cost a lot less than yours. So if I break them today, I'm not out that much. Okay, I am now going to be serious. And Chris and I started, of course, we connected at Emmaus Walk, as I said, and then started finding out that the Lord had been speaking to both of us pretty clearly about the times we're in. And I think anybody that's half awake or half has their eyes or ears open can tell how rapidly things are changing around the world and here at home. The Supreme Court ruling recently and the madness and insanity of that. And maybe some of you have differing views from what I'm going to say today. I'm going to share a word that's going to be between you and God, but I believe what the Word says about sin and calls sin, sin. And one of the first things the devil did with our great-great-grandmother Eve was go, did God really mean that or really say that? And get us to second-guess what God says is sin. And I will say this clearly, God does not. It's like we have 5 children and where are they this morning? I think the dog's keeping them. No, they're actually, our 91-year-old mother yesterday turned 91, and she lives with us, and she still drives and cooks and cleans and gardens, and we had a big birthday party for her last night. Anyway, she's taking the kids to church with her this morning. That's part of her late Christmas gift birthday gift to her. Maybe it's early Christmas. I don't know. You were talking about Christmas. When we're disciplining our own children, and you have children and you have grandchildren, you do it out of love, right? Do they understand how many times our youngest 10-year-old, I take something away from her, catch her in the kitchen with a whole box of chocolate ice cream on the floor with her and the dog fighting over it, and maybe she doesn't understand the chemical reality of what that's going to do to her body, but I, as her father, who hopefully know a little more, take it away from her in love And she might cry, not now. When she was younger, that actually happened with Gracie, our oldest daughter. We found her in the kitchen on the floor with our dog Toby with a box of chocolate ice cream, both fighting over it and all over their... when I took it from her, the dog went off scared and she burst into tears. You don't love me. And I do love you enough to not let you do that. So when God tells us something in His Word and says it's a sin, it's not because He doesn't want us to have a good life, or it's because He wants us to have a good life. And He knows that this particular thing, though it may feel good at the moment, it is not going to lead to life. How do you kill a mouse in your house typically? You get a trap and you put cheese in it or peanut butter in it and you set it over where you last saw the mouse and go to bed. The mouse comes out and all he can do is see and smell and the first little bit of taste of something that looks awful good, and that's it. I put the bifocals back on. The verse the Lord gave me this morning, and if you want to turn your Bibles, is in Romans chapter 2, when the Lord woke me up this morning with the sound of my wife's voice calling my name. Actually, honey, I want to use those red glasses. Yeah. The Lord works in mysterious ways. She just said, yes, she does. Hey, be still and know that I am John. No. She says, if you love me, keep my commandments. John chapter 10. Sorry, Lord, He knows we're joking. Romans chapter 2. See, now these are stronger, and I'll say this too, because we're going to need it by the time we're done with this word. Proverbs 17:22, a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. So maybe I can make you laugh by seeing you. These are stronger than those, so now my Bible's in better focus. All right, I'm getting there. Romans chapter 2. 5:30 this morning, this is what the Lord spoke to my heart. Beginning in verse 5. I'm actually going to read it. Do you guys use King James mainly here, or different NIV or whatever? Jesus preached out of the NIV. Or was it King James? No. This is the New Living Translation on here. Okay, beginning in verse 5, because I've got a King James here, but beginning in verse 5, but because you are stubborn and refuse to turn from your sin, you are storing up terrible punishment for yourself. For a day of anger is coming when God's righteous judgment will be revealed. He will judge everyone according to what they have done. He will give eternal life to those who keep on doing good, seeking after the glory and honor and immortality that God offers, but He will pour out His anger and wrath on those who live for themselves, who refuse to obey the truth and instead live lives of wickedness. There will be trouble and calamity for everyone who keeps on doing what is evil, for the Jew first and also for the Gentile. But there will be glory and honor and peace from God for all who do good, for the Jew and also the Gentile. As I was saying, it's very clear the times we're living in. Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21 are the three gospel accounts of the second coming of Christ. John does not mention it. In all three of those gospel accounts, some of you are familiar that Christ says there will be wars, rumors of wars, pestilence, famine, all kinds of trouble. We're living in a time when there are floods and fires and homosexuality rampant, and a man named Bruce Jenner who thinks he's a woman, all plastered in front of us, and I could go on and on. Planned Parenthood chopping up babies and selling their body parts. It's sickening to hear. We're going to talk about some hard things this morning. And we live in a nation that has become godless, that has mocked God. I saw footage yesterday of a gay parade, and I can't even describe it because there's children in here with a man dressed like Jesus. I can't even describe it. It's too embarrassing in here. Doing a sexual act with another man dressed like Jesus, with crowns of thorn on their heads, mocking Christ. This is America. We have riots in the streets. We have, but the thing that God sent Chris and I together to come here this morning for you is to sound a wake-up call. And it's so easy, and the most deceptive thing that the devil's done is get us to turn our eyes off of that because it's too hard. It is hard to deal with, and turn on Dancing with the Stars, turn on Duck Dynasty, turn on whatever your particular thing you love. Go get a junk food, there's everything to numb us and dumb us down from the truth of the time and season we're in. And we find very few people that are awake to the time and hour that we're in and getting ready for the second coming of Jesus Christ, which could be today. And it's a day sooner than it was yesterday. And the word today that the Lord has brought is one, just looking at a few verses about the reality of the season that we're in. Do you know the time that we're in? Are you aware of the time that we're in? Are you awake? Or are you asleep in Babylon? Are you asleep in entertainment? Are you asleep in junk food? Are you asleep in all that Babylon and the devil has to offer? And do you not really care about all the bad news? Or do you even think that some of it's not bad news? Are you calling evil good and good evil? What time is it? The Lord's waking me up at 5:30 in the morning. John, get up. I have more to add to what I've already given you to share this morning. I want you to get the people to see and hear the late hour. It's not only 1:45, it's 2 to midnight. Do you know when the Titanic hit an iceberg at 11:40 at night that after midnight and that people were still ordering room service, the band on the upper deck was still playing music, people were drinking and partying? Sounds like Matthew 24:37. As in the days of Noah, so it shall be at the second coming. People are eating, drinking, marrying, working, watching Duck Dynasty, party, life, everything's fine. That'll never happen until the flood came and swept them away, it says. Matthew 24:37. Luke 17, at the second coming of Christ, it'll be as in the days of Lot. People pleasure-seeking, homosexuality, perversion, self-seeking, self-pleasing, selfish, ungodly people. And I will come and destroy it. We just read in Romans chapter 2. That's the verse God woke me up with this morning. That I am coming and I'm going to judge your hearts. I'm going to judge your work. It's a late hour, folks. It's not time to be playing and partying and going about life as normal. There's nothing about life that's normal. I can't go to Walgreens 3 blocks from my house. This makes me so angry with my little girl Sarah, 10 years old, and our 13-year-old Rachel the other day to buy some ice cream. I probably shouldn't tell, but I wasn't going to let them eat the whole box. And get up to the counter, and I know maybe you know, and maybe this grieves some of you, it should. And I'm standing at the counter, and there's the magazine rack. The first one is a man who thinks he's a woman, Caitlyn Jenner. He's not a woman. He's a man, that God made a man, that God fearfully and wonderfully knit together in his mother's womb. It is not okay. It's a sickening, unbelievable perversion that makes me angry to see. And it's Luciferian, and it's straight from hell. And all the transgenderism is, I think I may be a boy born in a girl's body. I think I may be a girl born in a boy, and vice versa. No, you were fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalms 139, 13 through 16. Knit together in your mother's womb. Designed by God. You did not come from a monkey. You are not by chance. The devil has lied to you and deceived you and pulled blinders over your eyes. And I don't want to say he's good at anything, but he's great at it. He's destroyed our nation. The day that the Supreme Court ruled that you can be gay and perverse, which is what the Bible said would be in the end days, Luke 17, then that evening he goes to the church where the shooting was in South Carolina and gets up and sings Amazing Grace. Did some of you see that? Did anybody see that? Google it. The day, the 26th of June, that he declared and the Supreme Court declared sodomy is great, he goes that evening to South Carolina to the memorial service, stands up, a Muslim, which is what he is, a Muslim sympathizer. He's not any more Christian than my dog. I think my dog may be more Christian, and I'm not. And stands up in that church and sings Amazing Grace. I didn't know he could sing. I've never heard him sing before. And they're all hooping and hollering and singing with him and worshiping. He then leaves there and goes back to Washington, D.C., to the White House lit up in homosexual, in rainbow colors. Something God made to say, I'll never judge the earth again. I think the devil said, really, you'll never judge again? I'm going to take the very sign you said and smear it in your face. And we're clapping and going along with it. No, I hope you're not, but too many people are. Our nation is ruined. We've hit the iceberg an hour ago. The Titanic sunk 2 hours and 45 minutes later and killed over 1,300 people because they were going about life. And the man, as you know, said God himself could not sink this ship, ma'am. Do you know across that same ocean a few hundred years later, I've been to Plymouth, England, and stood in the water where a boat called the Mayflower left from with God's people in it, with God's heart in it, and they bowed on the shores in Plymouth and said, God, if you don't go with us, we won't make it. And that ship made it across the same ocean. And another ship, bigger and powerful and man-made, God himself couldn't sink this ship, ma'am. It's on the bottom of the ocean right now. Would you turn to Isaiah 24? This is what's coming, not only on America, but on the whole earth. Now, Isaiah 24, and I will read this out of my King James Bible. God's judgment of the whole earth. Behold, the Lord makes the earth empty and makes it waste, and turns it upside down, and scatters abroad the inhabitants thereof. And it shall be with the people, the same with the priest as with the servant, the same with the master, the same with the maids as with her mistress, the same with the buyer, the same with the seller, the same with the lender, the same with the borrower, as with the one who takes usury to the one that gives usury to him, or interest. The land shall be utterly emptied. In other words, the Lord's saying that when I do this, when I come again, when the tribulation's happening in days of sorrow, it's going to be the same for everybody. People's money's not going to save them. The only thing that's going to save them is a right relationship with the Lord. Let's keep reading what's going to happen. The land shall be utterly emptied, verse 3, and utterly spoiled, for the Lord has spoken this word. The earth mourns and fades away, the world languisheth and fades away. The haughty people of the earth languish. The earth is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the laws. We just changed the law in our nation. We changed thousands of years of what God said and people have said is marriage. Broken the everlasting covenant. Verse 6, therefore hath a curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned up, and few men are left. The new wine withers away, the wine withers. All the merry-hearted people are sighing at this point. The mirth of the tambourines stops. The noise of them partying and singing and dancing and concerts and all the entertainment, self, pleasure, me, entertainment, TV, movies, concerts. It's Babylon. It's Babylon. It's Babylon. It is Babylon. And if you don't know what I'm talking about and you think I'm talking about a place in the Middle East, read Revelation 17 and 18 tonight when you get home. It's a spirit that is over this nation, the spirit of Babylon, that is self-pleasing, self-serving, anti-Christ, anti-God, Luciferian, that will destroy you. I won't turn there now. Read it when you get home. Revelation 17 says, in the end times, it says everybody in the whole world, pretty much at this point, when this is happening, drank the maddening wine of her adulteries. This nation has drunk the maddening wine of Babylon's adulteries. And we're drunk with pleasure. Even, I won't go there. Keep reading here, verse 10. The city of confusion is broken down. Every house is shut up so that no man can come in. Some versions say that the doors to every house are barred. There's crying for wine in the streets. All joy is darkened. The mirth of the land is gone. The city is left desolate. The gate is broken down and destroyed. I could go on and on. For time's sake, I won't read the rest of that. Read the rest of that later tonight. It goes all the way to the end of the chapter talking about God. It talks about earthquakes coming. It talks about complete destruction of the earth. In Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21 that we discussed, all three passages talk about when this time comes of tribulation, that it's going to be the worst time in the history of humanity. And that if God had not cut those days short, no one would exist, it says, but for the sake of the elect, God will cut those days short. For those of you that may be hoping or praying for a rapture, I can quickly rattle off numerous verses. There is, in my opinion, and many other scholars, no reference for a rapture of us not going through anything. If it is, then God's got a lot of explaining to do to the Christians in Syria and Iraq right now that are being butchered, beheaded, burned alive by ISIS. Oh, it's just unfortunate that they weren't born in America. No, it's unfortunate that Americans don't know how to suffer as Christians, and that we're more concerned that we're going to church on Sunday. We're not going to church. That's like me saying I'm going to John and Debbie. I am John and Debbie Phillips. You are the church. This is a building. This building's going to rot into the ground and burn to the ground someday. Oh, that offends me. My grandmother paid for that or whatever. I'm not trying to offend you. This is a building. You're the church. And it's one more trick of the devil, in my opinion, to get us to segregate and separate our calling. Well, what do you do on Sunday? We go to church. What do you do the rest of the week? Go to work. And I might talk about God, or I might pray over my meal, or I might read the Bible on Wednesday, or go to Bible study on Wednesday, but really it's kind of segregated where my Christian thing's over here where I go to church, and then the rest of the week I'm doing what I do and hoping that maybe God's with me. We are the church. We're the body of Christ. This building only means a place where we can come and get refreshed and refueled so we go out and be the body of Christ 24/7. But the body of Christ in America is asleep. I've had the privilege of traveling to 12 countries around the world. I'm in the process right now of moving my family. We're moving the 29th of this month to Panama, Central America, to go do, the Lord's called us there for missions work. And in America we want, help me, Holy Spirit. I know that this is hard for some of you to hear, and we don't like pain. And we want to get away from pain, and we want to rebuke pain, and there's some pain and some demonic things that are definitely need to be rebuked. What does Ecclesiastes chapter 3, however, say? If you could make a list, and you don't have to turn there, most of you know this, there's a whole list over here. There's a time to be born, a time to sow, a time to gather, a time to speak, a time, all the nice, happy stuff, but they go back and forth. As you know, there's also then a whole list. You should write it down sometime. I've separated it into a list, like a time to die, a time to hate, a time for war, a time to tear, a time to cast away, a time. It's like, we don't want this list. We want this list. We want to rebuke that and call all that the devil. This is going to really challenge some of you, what I'm about to say. And you I'm leaving in a little bit and may never see you again, except on Judgment Day. So, this is between you and God. You don't have to respond. I'm trying to be faithful to deliver a word, and you take it and do what God shows you to do with it. John 10:10, to me, in my opinion, and is one of the most misquoted verses in the New Testament. And I'll explain quickly why. I've come that you might have life and have it abundantly. And in America, that's stuff for me, and pleasure for me, and health for me, and cars for me, and a house for me, and a boat for me, and things and stuff, and a big paycheck, and a big vacation. And the Lord is really blessing me now. The Lord is really blessing me. I'm having an abundant life. Because I have all this stuff that's going to end up in a junkyard or burning into the ground. We're going through our house right now to move, getting a 5,000 square foot home, and because we had 10 people living there. I'd live in a tent. I'm not materialistic. I don't care about the size of the house. We're getting it down to a 40-foot shipping container. Literally, it ain't funny. Matter of fact, I need your help this week. And the rest of you on the 24th can come on Monday. We're going to have a packing party and a cookout. Thank you, Chris. Okay, back to John 10:10. So it's been wonderful to me going through all this junk and stuff that we don't need. There's stuff in boxes in my attic and in boxes in my garage that I moved there 6 years from Nashville, Tennessee, that have not moved. It's stupid. We were in, I won't go there. The culture I'm not going to go there for time's sake. But John 10:10, I have come that you might have life and have it abundantly. And we take that to mean, and I'm not saying by anything, I'm saying that there aren't times when God doesn't want us, of course, to have joy, the fruit of the Spirit. and peace and love, but we never want suffering. We only want that. There's some of those things you can never have without going through suffering. Perseverance must finish its work, James chapter 1, so that you may become complete, lacking in nothing. How does perseverance finish its work? By having things to persevere. The harder the test, the deeper the grace. The darker the night, the brighter the dawn. John 10:10, I've come that you might have life and have it abundantly. Obviously, John, the apostle, records that. The disciples are there hearing that. I want you to go here with me just a second. From the 12 disciples, from the day they heard those words come out of the mouth of Jesus Christ, I want you, to the best of your ability, to follow their life from that day to the day of their death. And I want you to tell me what happened to those 12 disciples. I'll make it real quick. They were ostracized from their families. They were misunderstood. They were beaten. They were jailed. 10 of them were martyred. 1 of them committed suicide. And John died in exile. So either Jesus Christ is a liar to these men that he made that announcement to, or abundant life means something besides my physical pleasure and comfort and self-serving lifestyle. Paul in Philippians 4 verse 12 said, I have learned the secret of being content, whether well-fed or hungry, naked or clothed. And I can be naked and hungry, and God is just as faithful and just as good as when I have plenty. Read it again yourself. Stephen, the first one martyred, when he was being stoned to death, I believe he had learned the secret of being content. And he didn't call them, by the way, everything's money driven. Our whole lives are money driven. Jesus said, without what? It is impossible to please God. Money? He said, without faith, it's impossible to please me. When they were at the Red Sea, the Israelites with the Egyptian army coming on, did they pay Moses to part the Red Sea? When Jesus called those 12 disciples, did he say, I want you to leave your secular job and I'm going to give you a better job. I'll give you a 401k, 2 weeks paid vacation, a free fishing boat, and something, bonus, Christmas bonus, if you guys will come work for me. Pays a lot better than what you're getting paid right now. Okay, Lord, I'll leave. Let's do it. Let's go. No. He called them to leave their jobs, leave their money security, leave their plan and way of, I could work and do this and work and do this and work and do this. We work for a system that's godless, and it's gotten more and more godless, and it controls us. And it limits many of us from doing the work of God. Because I have to work. I'm on this treadmill. I got to pay NIPSCO. I got to pay AT&T. I got to pay the phone bill. I got to pay da-da-da-da. I got to pay the mortgage. We got this 2-garage house. And we're on this crazy treadmill that's not God ordained or God set up. It's a world system. Abundant life is having your life and heart surrendered to Christ, who thought you up, Psalms 139:16, who put you here, who made you for such a time as this, and knows why. I didn't ask to be put here. I didn't ask to be created. I didn't ask for the drunk, alcoholic, abusive father I had. God thought me up and put me here for such a time as this. He thought you up and he did a good job. But the devil, since the day you were born, has been trying to thwart that, stop that, prevent that from happening. One of the comforting things about this, where there's trouble coming, and it's already here, but this is, I think, kind of to synthesize this word here pretty shortly. While there are alarming things that are happening right now, and they're happening more and more and more, church shootings, this crazy stuff, all the stuff that we're going, it's like madness, is that the Lord said, again, in all 3 of those passages, these things have to happen. And Matthew 16, where when Jesus starts talking about, I'm going to have to go to the cross, I got to start telling you guys this, I'm going to go to Jerusalem, and I'm going to suffer at the hands of men, what did Peter say? Peter said, no, Lord, never. And what did Jesus say back to Peter? Get behind me, Satan. Wasn't calling him Satan, he was calling the spirit that he was operating in, which is what I'm talking about today. He said, you have the things of man in mind and not the things of God. Peter, I have to go to the cross. And that's why Jesus said in these passages about the end times, don't be alarmed. Well, that's an easy thing for you to say, God, when all this is going on. But there must be a way that we cannot be alarmed. There must be some way, if Jesus wouldn't have said it in all three accounts, that it has to happen. The thing that's going to make it doable for you and me is, I found this very interesting, and today the Lord showed me this. I've never heard this before and never heard anybody teach on this before, and the Lord dropped this in my heart this morning. In Revelation 16 and in here in Matthew 24, the first gospel account, and I know you know this at least about the Matthew account, Jesus says to be watching and waiting, and behold, I come as a thief in the night. Well, thief's a bad thing. A thief's terrible. He even says in the Matthew 24 version, if the man of the house, the owner of the house, had known what hour the thief was going to come, he wouldn't have been sleeping. He'd have stayed up and had a gun and been ready and been at the door, and the thief would have not broken into his house. Why is the Lord using a connotation of a fearful thing? You're coming as a mean, terrible person that's going to come steal my stuff? I think the Lord showed me what He meant this morning by it. For the first time, I've come to understand it. He's saying it's going to be scary. The Word says that men's hearts will fail them from fear after looking at the things that are going to come on the earth. The way to not be afraid is to be on our knees, on our faces, every day before the Lord, getting the junk out of our homes, turning the television off, turning entertainment that's ungodly and dishonoring to God off. Maybe changing some, and I'm just going to say I love all of you. I'm not judging anybody. I'm speaking to me. I'm speaking to my own heart and my own life and my own household, my own kids, and challenging myself to get the junk out of our home, out of our lives, out of our eyes, out of our ears, change our diet, even eat better, take better care of ourselves. And every day surrender our lives. Every morning the first thing should be, God, what's today and what do you have for me? Who do I need to forgive? I need to forgive myself, perhaps. That's the hardest thing to do. Who do I need to love and reach out to? Who do I need to make amends with? Doing everything we can to clean our hearts and clean our homes so that the devil can find no place in us. And Jesus said in Luke 21:36, one of the second coming accounts, pray that you may be found worthy to escape all this that's about to come on the earth. So He must mean that there's a way that we can escape it. I want to say this to help us this morning prepare for the dark times we're in. That's why Jesus said that, I believe, about the thief. He wants us to, we don't want to hear this. Chris, why did you have this redneck come share this stupid bad news? We don't want to hear it. We want to hear good. Hey, the good news is, if there was a thief, those people on that Titanic, if they knew somehow and could see hindsight's 2020, they would not be ordering room service. They would not be up on the deck dancing. Jesus is saying, people, I'm warning you, it's going to be terrible. How many times do I have to say it? In how many ways? It's going to be the worst times in the history of the world. But if you accept that instead of denying it and going back to Duck Dynasty and Dancing with the Stars and junk food and entertainment and I can't see that or hear that, when it hits you like Matthew 24:27-37, as in the days of Noah, they were doing all that and the flood came and swept them away. If you know it's coming and can prepare for it, it's going to be less fearful and less maddening. And there is something we can do about it. We can get our houses cleaned up, our hearts cleaned up. You can store up some food. You can get some generators. There's something everybody in here can do to get ready for the times that are coming so that you're not taken by surprise. And if you think it's not coming and I'm stupid, it's already here. We're in the 11th hour. We're way past the 11th hour. There's scientists saying it. Anyway, let me try to wrap up here with something that... Would you turn to Ezekiel chapter 9, please? Most everybody in this room, at least the adults, are familiar with Exodus chapter 12 and what happened in the Exodus. And I want to say this again to people that think we're going to get raptured and we're not going to suffer anything. In the Exodus, and we're going to come back to Ezekiel in just a second. In Exodus, when the Exodus happened, and you know the blood over the doorposts, and the death angel came through, all the study that I've done by historians say that there were anywhere from 1 million to 2 million babies, a minimum of 1 million firstborn children killed, a minimum of 1 million animals killed. The word says, and we won't turn there for time's sake, that wailing was heard in the home of every Egyptian woman that night, from the slaves to the king's house, it said. Where I'm going with that is, while the Christians in the tribulation that we're going in, I think if your house is in order and your heart's in order and my house is in order and my heart's in order, we can avoid the judgment of God. We'll still go the wrath of God. We'll still go through tribulation, and this is my point. The Israelites, while they did not lose a child, while they did not lose an animal, had to hear, see, and smell the judgment on God all around them. Cartloads of dead bodies, screaming, weeping, wailing mothers, piles and piles of dead animals. They had to see, hear, and smell the judgment of God. Psalms 91 is one of the most powerful, beautiful end-time psalms. You should pray it over your family every day. Please write that down if you're not familiar with Psalms 91. Stick your name in there and your address in there and start praying that over your family every day. However, in Psalms 91, it's the same thing as the Passover I'm talking about. It's 1,000 falling at your hand, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only stand and see the recompense of the wicked. Arrows flying, pestilence, famine, trouble. The whole passage is talking about protection, but yet it even says it right there. You will see it, which thus means you will smell it and hear it too, out from under Papa's wings. But still, what a terrible, traumatic thing to go through. The thing that will help you, though, is knowing the thief's coming, knowing this is coming, so that you can prepare yourself mentally, spiritually, physically to face it. Which would be worse? Us having happy service this morning and not saying it's coming and then it hit you? I love a movie that's out recently called The King's Speech. Some of you have heard it. Not that long ago, in some of your lifetimes, in Nazi Germany on September 1st, 1939, people that said it would never happen got bombed and killed, and World War III began. Hitler, World War II. In the book Thief, I believe it is, the beginning of the movie, one of the brothers has been trying to warn his brother, and there were a few people that were awake. Winston Churchill was awake. Most of the pastors weren't. Most of the Queen of England, that just came out recently, pictures of her doing the Heil Hitler and teaching her grandchildren back at that time, and thought Hitler was the greatest thing since ice cream. That happened in our lifetime in civilized world. 6 million people burned and killed. We're having it now. They're, again, I don't want to say because there's little children in here. You know what Planned Parenthood's doing and the perversion. In the beginning of the movie, the brother says the other brother, they get together for a birthday party for a little girl, and the brother, it's his niece, and he starts in again trying to talk about Hitler and that Hitler's not good and what's going on. He said, could you please just drop the Hitler stuff for one time, and could it just be about Annalise's birthday? And he said, and no more than that happens than a bomb hits the building beside him, the apartment building, and blows it up, and there's dead children and dead people, and they're running out, and he's grabbing, and the little girl's crying, and there's smoke, and they're getting out, and he says, do you believe me now? Do you know that there were approximately 1 million Jews out of the 6 million that could have gotten out that didn't listen? Well, more than that could have. Because they didn't, they were wealthy. They ran businesses. They were millionaires that died in gas chambers. Their money did not save them. Their business did not save them. Their college degree did not save them. They did not listen to the hour. They did not know the hour and the time, the late hour and time that they were in. And they died horrible deaths. God wouldn't let that happen. He loves us too much. There's plenty I don't understand about God. I don't understand that. All I know is that there's some secret to being content. I started to say that a minute ago. Stephen, the first martyr. What is the recorded transpiring of his martyrdom? Is he screaming and crying and begging for his life? Is he rebuking the devil and rebuking the spirit of death? And I command you and I bind you and I loose angels. And he's standing there with the heavens open, so caught up in the Spirit, and sees Jesus stand up and says, Father, forgive these people. They don't know what they're doing. I see you. I'm coming home. Because he had learned the secret of being content. He was so full of the Holy Spirit that his body didn't matter anymore. And he knew this was temporary. This building's temporary. Our spirits are eternal. What are you and I doing to get ready for the second coming of Christ? What are you doing to be ready to not only take care of yourself, but to help your neighbors who aren't ready? Do you care about your neighbors? Do I care about my neighbor? Do I even know my neighbors? Do I care about their spiritual condition? Folks, it's not time to be messing around or playing around. It's time to be getting right with God. We are in a late hour. Get your house in order. Get your heart in order. Get ready for the second coming of Christ and the rocky road to get it out of here. Yes. Yeah, Ezekiel 9. Here's another Passover that I'd forgotten about and just found recently that's very interesting. Ezekiel chapter 9. Beginning in verse 4. The Lord said unto him, which was an angel, Go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that are being done there. And to the others that aren't sighing and crying, he said, Go after them, go through the city and kill them. Don't let your eyes spare anybody. Don't have pity. Slay the old, the young, the women, the children. But do not come near any man who has this mark on his head. Begin at the house of God. Begin at the sanctuary. Begin at the sanctuary. And kill those that aren't mourning and grieving over the sins of my people. How many of us are grieved and mourning and weeping and repenting for America and the sins of our nation? Are we drinking the maddening wine of her adulteries and going right along with everybody else in the midst of it? The devil's made it so easy to do in America. He's made it so convenient to be lost in all that. The Lord's calling us to separate ourselves. The Lord's calling us to forgive people we need to forgive, to, again, get our houses in order, our hearts in order, and get ready for His second coming, and get ready for hard times that are getting harder and harder and worse and worse. And the Lord can sustain you, and He can multiply. Some of us will die. Some of us... The good news is if our hearts are right, we'll go to heaven and spend eternity. This is our temporary home. Pain is not bad when God's in it. Pain is a good thing when God's in it. I'll close with this. Isaiah 61:3 says, God gives beauty for ashes. That was the verse God gave us right after our niece died and was violently murdered at Columbine High School. You shared that, didn't you? You know, that's a terrible phone call that no family wants to get, that your beautiful 17-year-old niece was murdered at her high school. And the Lord said, Isaiah 61:3, family, I will give you beauty for ashes, but you have to give me your ashes. You have to forgive the killers, like Debbie said. You have to forgive. You have to trust me with this, even though it's so maddening and so ununderstandable. You don't understand. If you'll give it to me and you'll forgive and you'll trust me, I promise you I'll bring beauty for it. And He has. That was 16 years ago, and we've seen dramatic miracles. So I know this has not been a comfortable word this morning, and I just pray right now, Father, we come before You, and I ask You to sift through and sort through what was shared this morning. Lord, whatever was not of You, would You remove it from memory? Whatever is of You, would You put exclamation marks behind it? Lord, help us to get our hearts in order and our homes in order, and to be ready for Your second coming. Show us what to do. Show us, as importantly, what not to do. Lord, Your Word says that perfect love casts out fear. Your Word says that You have not given us a spirit of fear. You said, do not be alarmed. These things must come. Initially, it is very alarming, and it's very hard to think about and face. But, Father, let us be increasingly so caught up in Your Spirit and so in love with You and so close to You that our bodies don't even matter anymore, and the things of earth don't matter anymore. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in His wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in His wonderful face, and the things of earth shall grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace.